Most serial killer movies lie to you. They inflate body counts, invent charisma, and turn real victims into set dressing. Today, we're cutting through the noise. These are the 9 films that got it right. Same cases, same details, same uncomfortable truth. Let's get into the list.
How'd you do that? I just wanted to see what its insides looked like.
Number 9. My Friend Dahmer, 2017. Between 1978 and 1991, Jeffrey Dahmer murdered 17 men and boys in the American Midwest. He dismembered his victims, kept their skulls as trophies, and in several cases consumed parts of their bodies. He was arrested in 1991 after a victim escaped and flagged down police in Milwaukee. This movie covers none of the murders. It's adapted from the graphic novel by John Backderf, a classmate who actually sat next to Dahmer in high school, which makes it the only Dahmer production written by someone who was physically there. The specific details are what stand out. Dahmer really did perform fake epileptic seizures in school hallways for attention, really did drink alone in the woods near campus, and really did collect roadkill to dissolve in acid as a teenager. The film also gets the institutional failure right: his parents' bitter divorce, teachers who noticed something was wrong and looked the other way, without inventing any of it. Backderf has said he last saw Dahmer 3 weeks before his first murder. Number 8. Memories of Murder, 2003. 10 women were strangled in Hwaseong, South Korea, between 1986 and 1991, all on rainy nights, many wearing red. It was the country's first officially documented serial murder case. Investigators had no DNA technology, no organized profiling system, and extracted most confessions through beatings. The case went unsolved for over 30 years. Bong Joon-ho spent years with the actual case files before writing the script, and every ugly detail of the investigation is in the record. The torture-based interrogations, a mentally disabled man beaten into a false confession, evidence lost or contaminated, a hair sample eventually shipped to Japan, because South Korea had no lab capable of analyzing it. What cemented the film's reputation for accuracy came in 2019, when the real killer was finally identified through DNA, and virtually every specific detail Bong had put on screen turned out to be correct. The killer, Lee Chun-jae, watched the film from prison and said it was close to the truth.
If you don't stop, I'll have to have you removed.
If you don't stop, I'll have you removed. I've got a little system.
Call the next witness.
Do you think I'm kidding?
Number 7. Helter Skelter, 1976. In August 1969, members of Charles Manson's commune murdered 7 people over 2 nights in Los Angeles, including actress Sharon Tate. Manson orchestrated the killings but didn't carry them out personally. He was convicted of first-degree murder in 1971 and died in prison in 2017. The source material alone sets this apart. Lead prosecutor Vincent Bugliosi co-wrote both the book and the screenplay, which means the courtroom sequences weren't reconstructed from secondhand accounts. They were written by the man standing at the prosecution table. Every beat in the trial matches the official transcript. The witnesses, Manson's outbursts, the co-defendants carving X's into their foreheads in solidarity. The film is also unusually accurate about Manson's control mechanism. Not physical force, but psychological dependency, sleep deprivation, and LSD, all documented in the trial record.
Fucking to do.
Number 6. Monster, 2003. Aileen Wuornos killed 7 men along Florida highways between 1989 and 1990, all clients from her work as a sex worker. She claimed self-defense in each case, saying the men had raped or attempted to rape her. She was convicted, sentenced to death, and executed in 2002 after withdrawing her appeals. Patty Jenkins built the script around Wuornos' own words, trial testimony, death row interviews, and the documentary footage Nick Broomfield had filmed with her in her final years. Theron studied hours of those recordings and modeled her vocal patterns and mannerisms directly from the tapes. The timeline of victims, the geography along I-75, and the relationship with Thierry Amour all follow the documented record. The film's most important historical contribution is what it does with the self-defense claim. Wuornos' documented history of abuse, nearly all of which the jury never heard, is presented using the actual case record, not invented backstory.
You knew all about it, didn't you?
Of course I knew about it.
You're an accessory before the act.
I done nothing. Oh, God, I done nothing.
Number 5, 10 Willington Place, 1971. John Christie murdered at least 8 people at his home in Notting Hill, London, between 1943 and 1953, concealing bodies behind walls, under floorboards, and in the garden. His lodger, Timothy Evans, was wrongly convicted and hanged for 2 of the murders in 1950. Christie was executed 3 years later, and Evans received a posthumous royal pardon in 1966. The production filmed on the actual street, in the actual building, before it was demolished. The interior layout, the specific rooms, the alcove where Christie hid bodies, the garden, was reconstructed directly from the Scott Henderson inquiry and the subsequent Braben report, the 2 official government investigations into the case. Richard Attenborough plays Christie exactly as the inquiry described him, a mild-mannered part-time police auxiliary who used his uniform and apparent respectability to isolate and manipulate victims. The detail of Christie claiming he had medical training and could perform an abortion for Beryl Evans, which is how he gained access to her, is taken directly from the documentary record.
When you gotta go, you gotta go. Hey, Perry, pass me a match.
Sorry, never turned down a soldier.
Number 4, In Cold Blood, 1967. On November 15, 1959, Richard Hickok and Perry Smith drove to a farmhouse in Holcomb, Kansas, and murdered Herbert Clutter, his wife, and their 2 teenage children during a robbery that netted them $43. They were caught 6 weeks later, convicted, and hanged side by side in April 1965. Truman Capote spent 6 years on the case, including extensive recorded conversations with both killers in the years before their execution, which gave director Richard Brooks unusually precise source material to work from. Brooks filmed in the actual Clutter house and in the actual Kansas State Penitentiary warehouse, where the hangings took place. Much of the dialogue came directly from Capote's transcripts. Smith's account of the night of the murders, his mental state, the sequence of events, the specific moment the plan shifted, was reconstructed from what he told Capote on death row. Where Smith's and Hickok's accounts contradicted each other, the film leaves the contradiction unresolved because that's what the evidence supported.
He's coming towards us. Oh my God, he has a gun.
Don't move!
Number 3, Zodiac, 2007. The Zodiac Killer murdered at least 5 people in Northern California between December 1968 and October 1969, then sent encrypted letters and ciphers to Bay Area newspapers, taunting police. He was never identified. The San Francisco Police Department case remains officially open. Fincher's team obtained the actual SFPD and Vallejo PD case files and cross-referenced every scene in the screenplay against the primary record. The ciphers shown on screen are reproduced exactly from the originals. The phone call to attorney Melvin Belli is a recreation of a call that was actually recorded and is in the case file. The Lake Berryessa attack is reconstructed from the survivor's testimony with a specificity that investigators confirmed was consistent with the physical evidence. Most tellingly, Fincher refuses to name a killer. He presents the evidence pointing toward Arthur Lee Allen, and also presents the counter-evidence, including the fact that Allen's fingerprints and handwriting were never matched to the letters. The film ends where the case ends, without resolution.
What?
Did you really kill your mama?
I guess I did.
Number 2, Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, 1986. Henry Lee Lucas confessed to hundreds of murders across the United States throughout the 1970s and 80s. Most of those confessions were later disputed. A 1986 Texas Attorney General's investigation concluded many were fabricated, possibly with police encouragement, to clear unsolved cases. A confirmed core of killings remained. Lucas died in prison in 2001. Made for $125,000 in Chicago, the film draws on the documented elements of the case rather than Lucas's disputed confession catalog. The character of Otis is based on real-life partner Otis Toole, and their nomadic lifestyle, cheap motels, day labor, total social invisibility, matches what investigators documented about how Lucas operated undetected for years. What the film gets right beyond the specific case is the structural condition that made it possible. In the 1970s, there was no national database linking crimes across jurisdictions, so a man could kill in Illinois and drive to Texas the next morning with no one connecting the two. The MPAA gave it an X rating not for explicit content, but for tone, which is itself a form of accuracy.
Would you mind if before we go, could I see some ID or something?
You should buckle up. I don't like people riding in my car without wearing a seatbelt.
Thanks, I'm okay.
Number 1. The Deliberate Stranger, 1986. Ted Bundy murdered at least 30 women across 7 states between 1974 and 1978, escaped from custody twice, and was finally captured in Pensacola, Florida, in February 1978. He represented himself at his Florida trial, was convicted, and was executed on January 24, 1989. Bundy was still alive on death row when this aired in 1986, which meant the FBI's Behavioral Science Unit was still actively analyzing him. Survivors were available for consultation, and all 3 state prosecutions were on the record. The production worked directly with law enforcement, and the reconstruction of Bundy's movements across Washington, Utah, Colorado, and Florida matches the confirmed timeline with a precision no later production has matched. Both escape sequences, the June 1977 courthouse jump in Aspen and the December 1977 jail ceiling escape, are reconstructed from the official incident reports. Mark Harmon also plays the more accurate version of Bundy, not an ambient charmer, but a man who was unremarkable in daily life and turned the persuasion on deliberately when he needed it. 9 film versus 9 real cases. And the honest ones are always harder to watch than the sensationalized ones, because they remind you that these weren't monsters from another world. They were people, in ordinary places, and the systems around them mostly failed to stop them. Thank you for watching.